Well, the thing that I found remarkable is the idea that I was reading Eliyahu Kitov's book, Our Heritage, about Hanukkah, all the things about Hanukkah, and he talks about the concept of that how the Greeks had turned the idea of beauty and the beauty and wisdom, turning it into ugliness. And I think that as we, people are wondering, well, how do you connect the celebration of Hanukkah to this Torah parsha this week about Miketz, about Yosef? Yosef, the Torah is very economic in all of its language. And what's interesting about the Torah is it rarely describes the physical aspect of all the characters in the Torah. And the one thing that we know about Yosef, in addition to the fact that he had this amazing wisdom that God had imparted to him in the ability to interpret dreams, and then later we'll see that he becomes an amazing administrator who is able to run an empire. It's staggering. But he was also a good-looking guy. He was known for his physical beauty. And yet
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, what I'm talking about is that the beauty and the wisdom of Yosef is embodied within the Torah idea of wisdom and beauty, in that there's nothing wrong with being, attractive, but, the point is that he didn't fall prey to the way an entire empire fell prey to. They were
the
pulled
worship
down
of beauty,
to
right?
The worship of beauty.
His physical beauty, he exuded a beauty that was irresistible, and it was a manifestation of his inner spiritual purity. It was just a question of like perfection, and it's such an incredible synchronization, the portions of Yosef and the Chanukah story, because he is like the perfection of the klipa, as it were, of the concept of Greek beauty. And I mentioned in our study last week in our video on Parshat Vayeshev that this whole concept of his physical beauty is why he was like such a perfect interface, is the word I used, to the material world. And that's part of the whole mystery of how it was that he single-handedly was able to provide for not only his own family, but Egypt, and basically for the entire ancient world, because the famine was so widespread. And it was all up to Yosef. And it wasn't just because he had some kind of a BA in economics or business administration or something like that, and he just had this unbelievable understanding of numbers, and buy, sell, whatever, this whole unbelievable businessman of how he was able to get all of this together. That wasn't it at all. And that's the amazing thing about Yosef, because it's what's described in the Parsha, this week's Torah portion, is that he was able to store grain that until it could no longer be counted, right? In other words, he prepared for these years of famine. And he prepared so much that numbers became meaningless. That's how much he was able to prepare. We look at that and think that must have taken a tremendous amount of acumen, because who knows how to do that kind of thing? Who could be that kind of an administrator, right? But It was really something else entirely. It was Hashem. It was Hashem that was with him. Okay, so Hashem could be through anyone if it's all Hashem. Everything is all Hashem, and Hashem chooses a person to be the representation of what he wants to do in that world. But why did he choose Yosef? Why? And so the idea is that he, as Torah testifies to us, he was also considered to be the perfection of purity. He was also considered to be the tzaddik, the one who rules over his own lusts. And that's how he was able to withstand the incredible temptation of his master's wife. We just started speaking about it last week, but she was really a troubled person. She had a very, very unhealthy sexual appetite, and she really did her very, very best to unhinge him completely. He was 17 years old in all the prime of his youth, with all his vitality and power. How was he able to withstand that kind of thing? And not only did he, but he did so with tremendous integrity and power. And so he exudes this kind of unbelievable purity, ironically seeing that he was so attractive, so physical, that one would think that he could easily just become overcome, really, by his own physicality, really.
Yeah.
And so Chazal, our sages, tell us some unbelievable things about this whole mechanism of the preparing for the provisions for the years of famine. He saw it all coming and he planned for it, and he alone had this ability to save all of Mitzrayim and all of the world, and of course all of his family from starvation, by storing the bread, and no one else could store it. And he that was by dint of this attribute of his purity. So the Chazal tell us that when Egyptians tried to store their own bread, it all rotted away. It all rotted away in their homes and on their tables. It was all like Yosef was a magnet because he exuded purity, so he was able to keep it all together. And no one else, and just this one more thing, that's also connected to the fact that it's a strange kind of idea that, and it's not so well known, a lot of people are not aware of it, that Yosef had another requirement, and that was that everyone circumcised themselves before they come to bed. And it wasn't like the story of Shechem. He wasn't doing any kind of number here. He didn't do it. And after they healed, they all came. And then they were able to eat the bread, because that was really what this was all about. And that's why the famine came, and that's why Egypt was going under, because it was so totally sunk in this horrific licentiousness. And Yosef, like a beam of light, was able to elevate that gross physicality, that the klipa of that kind of like terrible abandonment to lust. He was able to save them through his own purity, despite the fact, or because of the fact that he was so beautiful. But again, that's part of the whole Mashiach ben Yosef thing. The Mashiach ben Yosef thing is a physical device, a physical force that is able to sanctify materialism by injecting Hashem's presence into it, and by elevating the material and creating the infrastructure and the logistics that are necessary to support the spiritual revolution. And then onto that scene of the infrastructure that was created by Yosef, or by the Yosefian force in history, then enter Mashiach ben David, who is able to uplift the spiritual. But first you have to have a purification of the physical.
I don't want to derail the discussion, but the point is that all these things are, as we're trying to point out to our audience, is that all these things are an echo of Yosef, and how his own idea of wisdom given to him by his father, who taught him the tenets that now became embodied in Torah, the wisdom of Hashem and his beauty, were used to save a nation.
Exactly.
And the parallel is that in the time of the Maccabees, the Maccabees, is that the reverse happened. They tried to take what the Greeks called truth and what they called beauty, and they turned it into a tool of oppression against Torah observant Jews.